All right, we're following up on the last video where at the end of it, the coolant tank was bubbling over. Well, here it is. Here's the coolant tank. Coolant tank is made out of plastic. It's a standard BMW part that you find on the 7 Series, probably other ones. You can get it online for like 39 bucks. I picked this replacement up at O'Reilly's for about 100 bucks, and that's the cost of the good one as compared to the cheaper one. I figured, hey, you want to get the good one. One of the reasons it's so expensive as compared to just an overflow tank is it actually has a temperature sensor in it, and it comes with the cap, which is a really good cap. I think the cap alone sells for about 30 bucks. Wasn't that big a deal. Now, so what had happened is when the lower alternator seized and ate the belt while I was driving down the road, the car began to overheat, and as the expansion tank was overpressurized, it cracked. I didn't realize that it had cracked, and some of the coolant started coming out. Wasn't a big deal, small price to pay, and thankfully this thing failed instead of another major part. And that's probably a good thing. So in the trash can it goes. All right, so we're going to talk about some things. I want to talk about some of the comments that I was reading in the section. You know what? I was testing the car out to make sure it got up to temperature. And it feels like it's doing great. I'm going to turn the car off. Wow, ice cold in there. Whew. Not ice cold out here. I think it's going to be just fine. So anyway, I was reading a lot of the comments and stuff about, people just making all these things going, you should have bought a Lexus, or you could have bought a new Mercedes for that money. What a money pit. What a problem that car is. It's really not. It has 75,000 miles and it's 15 years old. One of the things you got to remember, though, is that this was a chauffeur car that was used for rentals and limousine service, weddings and things. Probably did a lot of idling. Didn't necessarily come with an hour meter on the motor, but it did come with something that I want to reveal to you now. And I think that this is very important, because if you're thinking about buying one of these cars, or maybe another other modern car, and I don't know which cars do this, so please, for those of you who have a car that does show the number of services you've had, please post that in the comment section. But I showed in one of my last videos this Foxwell service tool, the NT650. I'll post a link to this particular one that I bought down in the description below if you want to get the same one that I used in my last video. But this thing does work, and you can plug it into the OBD2 port, and you can reset the various codes on the car. So when we replaced the brakes, because the brake sensor went off, it let me redo that. And then I also reset the oil service meter, which on the car says you only have to change it every 8,000 miles. Pretty impressive, actually. So, I usually change my oil here in Texas every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. That's just always been my thing. They're suggesting using the Castrol or Mobil 1 synthetic, changing it every 8. I probably will change it every 5. But let me tell you about what I learned. When I reset the oil sensor on there, it said it had 14 resets, which is pretty cool. It told me how many times the oil has been reset, and how many times the coolant and transmission and brakes and all of those things. So I did the math, and I realized the oil on this thing has been changed every 5,000 to 6,000 miles within its lifetime. I mean, unless somebody was just going in and resetting the oil and not actually changing the oil. But chances are it was taken to the dealer and taken care of. So I thought, wow, what a great tool to have. You need to have one of these before you buy a car like this, or really any car that has that type of feature, because you could take this with you, you could plug it in, and you could find out the service history of the car. Forget Carfax. And find out what's really going on with the car. Now, I think that this car is actually in really good shape. Okay, we replaced the water pump, we replaced an alternator, we replaced, what else did we replace? The little reservoir tank and a couple of belts. I mean, really, when you think about it, for large engines like the V12 on a luxury vehicle that are under a lot of stress, 75,000 miles in 15 years doesn't seem unreasonable to me. So I don't think that it's really a hoopty necessarily. Also considering this was one of the cheapest Phantoms in the country, with the original retail of $320,000 plus option back in 2004. I got this car for only $65,000. So let's say I put less than $10,000 in the car. New wheels and tires and the repairs that have been done to the car and whatnot. So if I'm into the thing, a little over 70 grand, still, I get to drive around in a luxury Rolls-Royce. So I've seen people mention in the comments, hey, well, if it's just like a BMW 760 Li, why don't you just pick one of those up for 5 grand and you can ride around in that? Well, I assure you, there's a huge difference between the two. I mean, there might be the same engine and transmission and coolant tank and a few other little things like that, but the car itself, I think it's unparalleled to just about any car. And I've checked out a lot of really cool luxury cars, and even Rolls-Royces of today. I mean, there's 17 cowhides worth of leather inside this thing. Every single thing in it is heat shielded, insulated, and soundproofed. When you're inside that thing, it is dead quiet. You can hear the clock ticking. I mean, when I'm driving in the rain, I can't hear the windshield wipers on the windshield. But here's the real thing about it. The other night, me and my wife went to House of Blues to see a show, and they have just a small section where they park cars up front, and they have a valet. Normally, you pull up in there, you park your car at the valet, they go put it in the garage, right? And you have to wait 10 or 20 minutes while they go get the car. When you pull up in this, they park it out front by the valet stand. Okay, then they comp you tickets to the show. The manager comes over and gives you his card and said, if you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask. This is my cell phone. You get treated with a whole new level of respect. Now, of course, it's kind of sad that that's the world we live in, that rich people get to buy their way through things. But the bottom line is, there's not too many other cars that you're going to pull up and get that kind of treatment. Now, listen, you could pull up in a really expensive, cool sports car like a Lamborghini or Ferrari, and there were some of those there. But I think that there's a certain amount of prestige that is just unparalleled that comes with the ownership of a Rolls-Royce Phantom. And the great value of this car is they kept the basic same body style for a long time. I mean, basically, if you saw a brand new one, the differences are very subtle. And a brand new one is going to cost you $550,000 plus tax and options and things like that. You're going to spend $600,000, over $500,000 on the car. And what are the differences? Well, it's got a little bit more tech. The dash is a little nicer. It's got, you know, the 360 cameras in there, GPS. It's got lane assist and auto braking, and it's got some really cool stuff that you'll find on a lot of basic modern cars now. But really, at the end of the day, it's the same basic shaped car, and it's pretty much the same, and your average person doesn't know the difference. So this car was originally silver. It's been wrapped black and white, which is a very popular color combination right now. I'm seeing it on a lot of Ghosts and Cullinans and things like that. And you know, I'm going to do some more videos in the future talking about what I think are good values for the cars. Now, you know, the Phantom is the big mamma jamma, the big papa. It is a huge car. I mean, this thing, I've got it in my shop, and it's almost 20 feet long. It's like almost 6,000 pounds, I think. It's a huge car. It's basically the size of like a Suburban. So a lot of people choose, you know, if you're living in the city and you're going to use the car as a real personal daily driver, to get the Ghost. Now, a lot of people like the Wraith. The Wraith is the two-door version of the Ghost, basically. It's a two-door. The doors open sideways. But the problem with the Wraith is that you can't park it in a regular parking spot because the door opens so wide, it's virtually impossible to get out without whacking the other car. And the back seats are completely worthless. The Ghost is just a smaller version of this car that's more about the size of a, you know, large Mercedes or full-size BMW or something like that. But the Ghost just doesn't seem to get the same kind of cred, street cred, that this thing is. You'll pay a little bit more for a Ghost than you would a used Phantom, but it's going to have a little bit more tech in it. But it's just a much smaller car, but basically the same engine and setup and the same basic issues. So I learned a lot about buying one of these cars used now that I've bought one, and a couple of things to look out for. For instance, like the suspension. The suspension on these things just go through a lot of torture because it's a big, heavy car. And you're gonna go through a lot of control arms. So I just ordered some new lower control arms. They connect to the cradle and to the wheels. They're about $1,200 a pair, so like $600 a piece, because the bushings are vulcanized to the metal. Now, I've been told that you can squeeze them out and press other ones in if you really know how to do it. But you know what? I'm just buying the originals and sticking them in. The amount of time and effort, it's just gonna get it done. And you're gonna have to do that every 20 to 50,000 miles, I hear. And a good way to check is, well, just crawl under the car and have a look at them. But if you can't do that, if you have somebody help you, to just roll the car forward a little bit and slam on the brakes and see if the wheel shifts a little bit. And if it does, you're probably going to need bushings. But basically, based on mileage, you're going to need to know that information anyway. My Cadillac CTS-V is kind of the same way. I mean, the shocks in those things are only good for like 40, 50,000 miles, and then they got to be done again. And that's just the way high performance luxury vehicles are. There's so much going on down there to give you that smooth ride. That's the price you're going to have to pay. Another thing that you're probably going to have to service is things like the belts and the hoses. There's a lot of extreme heat going on under here. This is all aluminum. It's all insulated really well. And they got to get all that heat out, and they don't want any of it going into the cab. So there's a lot of heat under there. That thing gets awfully hot. And you're running 2 alternators that are running 180 amps, and they're liquid cooled. And you have that big, huge radiator. It's not just for looks. There's no fake stuff on this car. There's no fake vents. It's actually doing everything it looks like it's doing. So it's cooling off the 2 alternators, cooling off a V12 engine, 6.75 liter. That's a big, big motor. Thing holds like a couple of gallons of oil, a couple of gallons of coolant. Big, huge transmission, but it shifts smoothly and it rides great. So, the thing is in my personal opinion, for as a car enthusiast that's willing to work on his own car, if you were a regular buyer and you were buying this car at a discount and you were to drop it off to Rolls-Royce and say, here, sort out everything that needs to be done, you might have spent $10,000 or $20,000 on all of the service that it needed. Whereas the way we did it, so maybe I've spent 10 grand on it or whatever, but look, I got brand new spanking, brand new wheels with new caps, new tires. These are also run flat tires. These tires, by the way, are about $900 a piece or whatever. So that's $4,000 worth of run flat Goodyear tires. And let me tell you, after taking off those big ghetto wagon wheels, this thing rides like a dream. It's like I'm driving on a street made of marshmallows. It's wonderful. And, we've updated some things on it, and now I've got a car with a new water pump, new alternators, new belts, new hoses, right? All the fluids have been changed. We're about to go ahead and change the bushings. It's got new wheels and tires. So now I've got a car that I've only got maybe 70, 75 grand in as a luxury car, and in my opinion is going to be better and serve me better than one that I might have bought for 85 that had less miles, that's going to need all that stuff. So the key here is, using proper tools like this to really check out the thing, and using depreciation as a tool to get what you want. This is how I bought my tour bus. This is how I bought other cars. And by using depreciation, I got this car at maybe less than 20% of its real street value. And believe it or not, I think that after I fixed the little dent on the door that happened from the previous incident, and we're going to go ahead and rewrap this. I think I could probably sell this car for 85, 100 grand and make money on it. I've already had people offering to buy it. I don't want to sell it. I'm going to keep it. I love this thing to death. Anyway, I just wanted to give you an update on that. And I know this might have been a long, boring talking video, but for those of you that are seriously considering getting into the used luxury car market and buying a car like an old Bentley or a Rolls-Royce Phantom or something of that nature, I think the couple of little tips and tricks that I gave you are gonna make a world of difference when it comes time for you to get that car. And also checking the service and checking to see if the amount of services that have been done to the car or need to be done. And that way you'll be aware of what you're gonna have to do and use that as a negotiation, to be a shrewd negotiator, as Ed Bullion says, so that you get the best deal on the car and use that as part of your negotiation tactic when you're buying it, and also be aware of what you're gonna have to do. But in my opinion, I'd rather save money on a car, put that money back in, and have a car that has new brakes and new pads and new accessories and new belts and hoses and fluids and all those things. And now this car's ready to go. And you want to know something? I wouldn't feel too unconfident to hop in this thing and drive it out to LA from Dallas right now. The Rolls-Royces are really, really reliable cars. You just have to understand that there's going to be scheduled maintenance, and it's just things you're going to have to do. And yes, it's going to be more expensive than your average Toyota Camry or whatever, but nothing, and I do mean nothing, gives you the ride and the experience of the Rolls-Royce Phantom. Anyway, thanks for tuning in and watching today's video. And if you're really into these cars, and as well, we work on other stuff like Knight Rider and Ghostbusters and Back to the Future and all kinds of other cool stuff. If this is your bag, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you'll know that when we post something, you can be informed. Anyway, thanks for watching on Videobob. it.